Welcome to Wellsprings Community Church.
My wife thinks I'm taller than she is. I don't think that's true. Good morning again, and welcome to our time when we're looking at the last of our looks, as it were, at love. Such a vast subject, and not really one that we've even begun to scratch the surface of, really. If you didn't listen to or hear the first Sunday when we opened up this subject, do try and listen to that online if you can. We've been thinking about God's love and ours. And one of the things which we've been trying to get our heads around is the fact that it's God's love, not ours, which is primary. In other words, any love that we experience, any love that we know, that we share, that we demonstrate, is but a reflection of God's love and our response to it. That's pretty important, I think, for us to remember, because as we thought about in 1 John 4, we love because he, that is God, first loved us. That's why he's the source of all true love, and why we merely reflect that, and why we have to respond to it. It's already been said, I think, that love is the most excellent way. And we're going to look this morning at, and read together on screen at least, a passage in the New Testament which is very much associated with wedding ceremonies. And I don't know if I've ever been to a wedding ceremony where this has not actually been read, this hymn to love that we sometimes refer to, that we find in 1 Corinthians 13. And it is such a tremendous passage, as you'll see when we come to read it together and to reflect on it briefly. And even if you take it out of its context and just read it in isolation, you can't help but marvel at just, I don't know, the magnitude of what Paul is sharing as he's inspired by God the Holy Spirit to write in that particular way, as a reflection of true love, of God's love, and of our response to it and our reflection of it. Having said that, and that hymn to love is capable of being read out of context, I want this morning, in the context of a church service and us as a church family and a church community, to remember that he is writing a letter to a Christian church in Corinth. And what he's saying there, of course, specifically with the issues that they face, are particular to them and yet still have a great deal to say to us as the Christian church today. In the church in Corinth, and one of the things that Paul was writing about in particular, and which we'll see is really the context for what we read in 1 Corinthians 13, was the fact that those Christians they placed perhaps undue significance on particular spiritual gifts of the Holy Spirit, which is not our subject for this morning, but which I think we need to understand that whatever kind of gift we have, whether it's a spiritual gift or a natural gift, they all come from God. He's the source of all these abilities and talents, whether we class them as spiritual gifts or spectacular, or gifts of service and gifts of help, all those, perhaps we might call them mundane things. They all come from God, no matter how great, how small we might rate them or rank them. And he writes this in 1 Corinthians 12 before we come to read 1 Corinthians 13 together. There are different kinds of gifts, But the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. So he says, now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. And without going into great detail, I think when it comes to spiritual gifts, whether we think we've got one or whether we think we haven't, whether we think we've got loads of them, and God's blessed us in a really special way, let me say that everyone, every Christian, every true follower of Jesus has at least one. I can guarantee you that. Whether you've discovered it yet or not remains to be seen. But I think the key thing I want to get in our heads, someone put this in my head years ago, and I think it's a simple way of remembering this, that God has given a gift to each for all. Remember that, to each for all. And if you remember that, then I think you won't go too far wrong. God has given a gift to each of us, maybe a particular gift to us, and he's given to nobody else. But it's not for me to glory in that because he's given me that particular gift. He's given that particular gift to me to bless somebody else. It's for the good of all. And I think we need to really hold on to that as we come to look at our passage together. And we'll do that now. There we are. 1 Corinthians 13. Love is indispensable. In other words, we can't do without it. Paul ends up chapter 12 as a bridge. Sometimes we have a bridge in a song, don't we, to sort of go into another verse or take us to another song or to the chorus or whatever it might be. If you had a Bible and looked at that, you'd find at the end of 1 Corinthians 12, Paul provides this bridge. Because sandwiched between chapters 12 and chapters 14, which are all about how we exercise gifts, what gifts there are, etc., strategically placed, is chapter 13. And Paul says, and yet, or now, I will show you the most excellent way. And he writes this, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but I do not have love, I gain nothing. They're really words to the point, aren't they? I don't know how the Corinthian Christians received those, particularly those Christians who were placing particular emphasis on the more spectacular and the more miraculous spiritual gifts that we read of. And they're genuine spiritual gifts. They're given to each for the benefit of all. But of course, if, like some of those Corinthian believers, they place undue emphasis on those things and say, if you haven't got these, then you're not a real Christian. If you don't demonstrate them in the way that I'm demonstrating them, then you're not a real Christian. That is where things become seriously adrift. And so Paul is writing particularly to those things which are prevalent in that church and which are being used not in a constructive way, but in a destructive way. They may not be particular things that are relevant to the local church here or to the church that you normally attend, but the principle is exactly the same. Love is indispensable in whatever way we seek to serve and to speak and to minister God's love and God's grace. There's this stark contrast drawn. I don't know if you noticed it. It really strikes me that Paul says there's those who think they've got everything. They're at the height of spiritual maturity in their eyes. They've reached what they might call the pinnacle of spirituality and of sacrifice. They think they've got it all. And yet, when God comes to assess it, and when he looks at it in the light of his love and his essential being, he says, you haven't got it all. In fact, without love, you haven't got anything. You've got nothing. Nothing of any enduring value. Nothing that will last. Nothing that will count for eternity. It's just a hollow, self-glorifying noise if you speak in tongues to glorify yourself. Without love, you've got nothing. Even if you make that most extreme sacrifice, it's sort of translated differently. I think the way that it's been put here is one of the translations in the NIV. And it's this idea that if I take the ultimate way of giving to the poor and I sell my body into slavery so that I can raise money and give to the poor. Yes, the poor might benefit, but if that is done so that I can boast and not done in the spirit and in the sense and in the demonstration and the expression of God's love, then I gain absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. And so love is the great leveler. And I think it's important that we understand that when it comes to the expression of God's love and of the gifts that God has given to us, be they spiritual as we understand them or natural talents and abilities, you can't separate them from the God who supplies both. That we shouldn't have this sort of overblown view of ourselves or indeed of other people who may have what we would regard as some spectacular gift. But equally, we shouldn't have an diminished view of ourselves. We shouldn't undervalue what God has given to us in his wisdom, because it is God, the Holy Spirit, who chooses to give and to gift in whatever way he chooses for the benefit of everyone else. So I don't know if you know what your spiritual gift is. Whether you've discovered it, whether someone else has said to you that is your gift, but we've all got one. But the key to it is that we must exercise it in the spirit of true love. So we come to the passage which I guess is the one which is most often read at wedding ceremonies and marriage ceremonies. And many people could probably quote it. Without even reading it. Tremendous. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Tremendous words, aren't they? Every time I read them, they sort of take my breath away, and I can quite see why they are read when two people come together to make promises to each other, to share their life and their love in that particular way. What a challenge to each of those parties that come to that. What a challenge to us as well. And if love, agape, love, the Greek term that describes the kind of love that we've been thinking about, in particular, and that we read about most often in the Bible, it's called the fruit of the Spirit. And if what we've just read is a beautiful picture of what love is, then in a moment we'll see it's a beautiful picture of who love is as well. Love that is self-giving. Love that acts and sacrifices on behalf of others without counting the cost. Love that is unconditional with no strings attached. We've also had these words already mentioned in our first part of the service. Love that is perfectly demonstrated in Jesus. Some of those words, of course, are true and always will be true of what love is. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. They will always be true. Rejoices with the truth. It always protects, endures, puts up with annoyances, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. And then what Paul does is he takes, and I find this often helpful in terms of trying to understand something, particularly in relation to how God is speaking to us and how God relates to us in the words that are used, to take all those things that I'm so prone to do in my fallen human state, all those things that I see so readily reproduced in my life, and to say, well, actually, love is the exact opposite of that. God's love is not those things. So, they are not the kind of things which you will be living out or characterized by your life. Pride, envy, boasting, dishonoring others, seeking what benefits me, keeping a record of wrongs that others have done to me, and delighting in evil. All those kind of things, they're the exact opposite of divine love, of God's love, of the love that Jesus shows to us. So is there anyone, let me ask you this question, is there anyone who has lived on this earth, who has lived out that kind of love in a perfect way? Anybody? Yeah, even the Sunday school kids would get this one right. Jesus, absolutely. He is the only sinless person who has lived on this planet Earth. He's the only one who has perfectly modeled God's love, because he is God himself. He is God in flesh, God incarnate. The perfect demonstration of who God is. The writer of Hebrews puts it like this: the Son is the radiance of God's glory, the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. So if you want to know what God looks like, how God expresses himself, how God shows his love, then have a look at his Son, his unique Son, his only begotten Son, Jesus, because he's the only perfect model, and he's the only one who can perfectly live out the love of God. If that's the case, this has been done many times, so this won't be something new, but I think it might bring it home to us. If Jesus Christ is the unique, one and only Son of God, unique God-man, and the perfect reflection of God's love and the exact representation of God's essential being, then we can read those verses about love. It tells us what love is, but we can do it this way and substitute Jesus for love in that passage, and it will still make perfect sense. In fact, you could say that's the only way it makes sense. So let's do that a moment. Jesus is patient. Jesus is kind. He does not envy. He does not boast. He is not proud. He does not dishonor others. He is not self-seeking. He is not easily angered. He keeps no record of wrongs. Jesus does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. He always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. I concluded our first talk on the first Sunday in February with this thought, that to love is to share. And that we as God's people today, as those who have chosen through faith to respond to God's call and to receive the forgiveness that comes through the sacrifice and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, that we who represent the church today, his body expressed on earth, then it is we who are the overflowing and the living and loving evidence of God in the here and now. So if we want to know what God's love looked like, we looked at Jesus. But now, if anyone wants to know what God's love looks like, they should see it reflected in you and me as Christ's followers, as the Christian church. So here's a big challenge. Can we look at those verses again? And this time, and I want you to do this, I haven't put your name in there, I've put a series of crosses. But what I'd like you to do is to read that silently, not audibly, and to do that as you look at it and in your heart, and put your name in there in your mind as you say it to yourself in your heart before God. And as you do that, just to see how you measure up, how much of a reflection of God's love, how many of those words, those descriptions of love, are actually evident and true in your life. And I'm not doing this so that you can pat yourself on the back and so that your head can swell, or that you can crawl under the chair and hide in dismay and disgust at just how far short you fall, but just to do it as the fact that this is the kind of love that I, as a follower of Jesus Christ, should be demonstrating and living out. So I'm going to read this through in my mind and put my name in there, and while I do that, I want you to do the same. Tough one, isn't it? I'm going to read the rest of the verses and then I'll just come back to them again as we close. These are the other verses that we have in 1 Corinthians 13. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man or when I grew up, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Because it's the great leveler, and because it's the great survivor, it's one of those things, one of those three things that will always remain: love. Will I ever achieve perfection in this present body of mine on earth? Will you? No, we will not. We are looking forward to a day when that will be true, but that will be when Jesus Christ comes again, the second time, to finish the work that he started when he came the first time, to bring all things into perfection and to completeness. And then, if I'm part of his family, I will know what it is to know him fully and to love him fully and to be able to express that in a way which at the moment I can only try to do. But the fact that I'm not going to achieve it here and now isn't an excuse for me to say, right, okay, well, I'll just give up then. Paul said that he made it his goal to please God, whether he was at home in the body or away from it. And I think that's an entirely good way to finish our morning service, to say that we're never going to achieve it, but that should be our goal. Our goal to please God. And we do that as we seek to live out by his Spirit the love that he is calls to come and live in us and to transform us increasingly into the likeness and the beauty of Jesus. I only know in part now. I have a long, long way to go before that day when Jesus himself comes or calls, when I shall know even as I am fully known. If the music group would like to join me at the front, we're going to sing a couple of songs. I'm going to read one of them, and we'll sing two of them. They're in fact prayers. So make these your closing prayer, if you will, in your own heart. One of them, first two are quite old actually. One of them I'll read and the other will sing, so I'll read this one. Let the beauty of Jesus be seen in me. All his wondrous compassion and purity. O thou Spirit divine, all my nature refine till the beauty of Jesus be seen in me. They're going to sing, Change My Heart, O God. That's another one which is a prayer which we can make, and I think we should, as we stand now to sing this together, let's do that. Let's make it a prayer from my spirit to God, who will hear and welcome and change us so that we might be like him. We're the clay, he's the potter. We should submit to his hands as he molds us and makes us in whatever way he chooses, in whatever gift he chooses to give to us. It's for the benefit of all. It's for the glory of Jesus.